The air hums with the last gasps of a bustling market day. Stalls are being packed away. Lamps flicker, casting long, dancing shadows. Rain-slicked cobblestones reflect the hurried movement of merchants. A lone, elegant figure, in a simple, dark-hooded cloak, navigates the thinning crowd with an almost ethereal grace, her presence both understated and commanding. She moves with purpose, her eyes scanning. Suddenly, a commotion erupts. A street vendor's stall, laden with intricate wooden carvings, is violently overturned. Wooden carvings scatter across the wet ground. A burly man, enraged, looms over a cowering older woman, screaming about unpaid debts. "You promised! Now look what you've done!" he bellows, his face a mask of fury. The elegant figure pauses, her gaze sharp, assessing the scene with an almost surgical precision. The woman, frail and shaking, tries to gather her scattered wares, her tears streaming down her face. "Please, give me more time. My daughter is ill," she pleads, her voice barely a whisper against the vendor's escalating rage. He grabs her arm, threatening to smash the remaining carvings. The elegant figure, Adana, now steps forward, her voice a calm, clear bell cutting through the chaos. "How much does she owe you?" she asks, her tone devoid of emotion, yet brimming with an authority that silences the street vendor instantly. The vendor, surprised by her sudden appearance and quiet confidence, stammers out a figure. Adana reaches into her cloak, producing a small, intricately beaded leather purse. She counts out a sum far exceeding the debt, placing it directly into the vendor's hand, then adds a little more. "For her troubles," she says, gesturing towards the distressed woman. "And for yours." She then helps the old woman to her feet, gathering the carvings with gentle hands, her actions speaking volumes without a single boast. Kwesi's apartment is meticulously decorated, but the sheen is starting to wear thin. Expensive yet slightly dated furniture suggests ambition outstripping current means. Kwesi paces furiously, a half-empty glass of whiskey clutched in his hand. He's on the phone, his voice a frustrated roar. "Another delay? Do you know what this means for the Golden Thread project? Our investors are getting restless." He slams the phone down, running a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair. The apartment feels suffocatingly quiet after his outburst. He stares at a framed blueprint of a magnificent textile factory, the Golden Thread Textiles, his dream project. His eyes are filled with a desperate ambition, a hunger that gnaws at him. He mutters to himself, "I need more capital, a big break, something, anything." He looks around the room, dissatisfaction etched on his face, as if the solution were to materialize from the very air. Adana enters the apartment, her quiet grace a stark contrast to Kwesi's earlier tempest. She carries a small woven basket, its contents hidden. Kwesi barely looks up from his tablet, engrossed in financial projections. "You are late," he says, his tone accusatory, not bothering to meet his gaze. "Were you out with your village friends again? You know how I feel about you associating with that kind of poverty." His voice carries a thinly veiled contempt, a cruel sting hidden in casual remarks. Adana places the basket on a side table, her movements unhurried, her expression unreadable. "I was helping an elder at the market," she replies softly, her voice calm. Kwesi scoffs, finally looking up, his eyes narrowing. "Helping? You spend more time helping than you do focusing on our image. Do you know how much I've invested in making us look presentable? Your humble origins are becoming a liability, Adana. People talk." He stands, his posture radiating annoyance. Kwesi gestures around the apartment dramatically. "This isn't some mud hut, Adana. This is the life I've built for us, the life you should be grateful for. And yet, you cling to the past, to that wretched village life." His words are sharp daggers designed to wound. Adana merely looks at him, her gaze steady, unwavering, though a flicker of something unreadable crosses her eyes. She doesn't flinch, doesn't outwardly react to his cruel words, maintaining her quiet composure. My past is a part of who I am, Kwesi, Adana finally says, her voice still soft, but with an underlying steel. It taught me resilience. It taught me value beyond material wealth. Kwesi laughs, a harsh, dismissive sound. Resilience? Value? Those don't pay the bills, Adana. This new deal, the one I'm working on with the shadow investor, that's what brings value. That's what will put us on the map. He paces again, his mind already far from their argument. Kwesi's small, cramped office is a testament to his ambition. Stacks of files, blueprints, and market research papers are piled high. He sits hunched over his desk, poring over a complex spreadsheet, a frown deeply etched on his face. Jide, his business partner, enters carrying 2 steaming mugs of coffee. Jide is the grounded, pragmatic counterpoint to Kwesi's often reckless ambition. Still trying to make sense of the numbers? Jide asks, setting a mug in front of Kwesi. It's the shadow investor's latest report, Kwesi mutters, tapping a figure on the screen. Their capital injection is massive, almost unbelievable. It's what allowed us even dream of the golden thread. But their demands for anonymity are peculiar. No meetings, all communication through encrypted channels. Who are these people, Jide? He leans back, a mixture of awe and suspicion in his eyes. He's grateful for the funding, but deeply frustrated by the lack of direct contact. Jide sips his coffee thoughtfully. Whoever they are, they believe in your vision, Kwesi. That's all that matters. This level of investment, it's a game changer. Our competitors are green with envy. He gestures to the pile of blueprints. The factory is ahead of schedule. Your golden thread is becoming a reality. Kwesi nods, a rare smile touching his lips, momentarily forgetting his frustrations. Yes, but imagine how much grander it could be if I could just meet them, convince them of my ultimate vision. I feel like a pawn in my own empire, Jide. He stands, walking to the window, looking out over the bustling city. This investor, they know my plans, my struggles, my very thoughts. It's like they're inside my head. The contract even stipulates a specific focus on ethical sourcing and community development in the rural areas, which frankly slows things down, but their money talks. He pauses, a glint in his eye. But once the factory is built, once I am established, then they will see who truly holds the power. Adana sits opposite Mama Ngozi, her foster mother, in a cozy, humble hut filled with the earthy scent of herbs and wood smoke. Mama Ngozi's face is a road map of wrinkles, each one telling a story, her eyes sparkling with ancient wisdom. Adana holds a small, intricately carved wooden bird, turning it over and over in her hands. She speaks softly, her voice laced with a quiet sadness. He spoke of my origins again, Mama, called them a liability. Mama Ngozi clocks her tongue, shaking her head. Kwesi's pride is a thorny bush, my child. It blinds him to the true riches around him. She reaches across, gently covering Adana's hands with her own. Your spirit, your heritage, these are not liabilities. They are the strongest threads in your tapestry. He measures worth in gold, but you measure it in goodness and strength. Her words are a balm to her quiet heart, reminding her of her true self. Adana looks up, a faint smile playing on her lips. He is so consumed by his golden thread project, Mama. He doesn't know the true source of its strength. A knowing look passes between them, a shared secret. Mama Ngozi chuckles softly. Some lessons must be learned in the harsh glare of the sun, my dear, not in the gentle shade. She gestures around the hut. Remember who you are, Adana. Remember the strength that flows through your veins, the legacy you carry. Adana nods, her grip tightening on the wooden bird. I do, Mama. Her eyes drift to a small, intricately carved wooden chest in the corner of the hut. The chest, though old and unassuming, seems to hum with a subtle power,
a silent testament to a hidden past. It will all unfold in its own time, Mama Ngozi adds, her voice soft but firm, a ripple of destiny in her tone. Kwesi is holding court at a high-end restaurant surrounded by eager potential investors and business associates. He's charming, confident, painting a grand vision of the golden thread textiles. He regales them with stories of his entrepreneurial prowess, his brilliance in securing the elusive shadow investor. Adana sits quietly beside him, elegantly dressed but almost invisible, observing the scene with a detached air. Kwesi, flushed with success and ego, turns to Adana, a condescending smile playing on his lips. "My dear wife, Adana," he announces to the table, "comes from a very simple background, a testament to how far one can rise with
The right guidance, wouldn't you say? He chuckles, expecting agreement. The investors exchange uncomfortable glances, but Kwesi is too lost in his own self-importance to notice their discomfort or Adana's silent reaction. Adana's smile remains fixed, though her eyes hold a depth of emotion that Kwesi completely misses. One of the investors, a shrewd woman in her 50s, tries to interject. Indeed, humble beginnings often forge the strongest spirits. Kwesi, however, waves her off dismissively. Oh, yes, of course. But you see, my work, my vision, has truly elevated her, brought her into the light, as it were. He raises his glass, oblivious to the subtle tension he's created. He continues to talk about his achievements, his genius, never once crediting Adana for any support or contribution. Adana, for her part, simply sips her water, her gaze drifting to the ornate patterns on the tablecloth, a quiet storm brewing beneath her serene exterior. She hears every word, absorbs every slight, but shows no outward sign of distress, her self-control absolute. The Golden Thread Textiles factory is a hive of activity. Cranes swing, workers in hard hats move purposefully, and the skeleton of a vast building rises proudly against the skyline. Kwesi stands on a temporary platform, beaming with pride, overseeing the progress. He points to various sections, explaining his grand vision to Jide, who dutifully takes notes. This will be the dyeing vats, this the weaving looms. It will be an empire, Jide, a monument to my ambition. He surveys the sprawling site, his chest puffed out, a proprietary gleam in his eyes. All thanks to the shadow investor, of course, he adds, almost as an afterthought, though his tone suggests he believes the credit is ultimately his. He can almost taste the success, the recognition he craves. He sees his name etched into the very foundations of this monumental undertaking. Jide, ever the pragmatist, points to a detail on the blueprint. The investor specifically requested the integration of the solar panel array on the roof, despite the added cost, and the wastewater treatment plant is far more advanced than current regulations require. Kwesi waves a dismissive hand. Minor details, Jide, environmental concerns, social responsibility, all well and good for public image, but the real genius is in the production, the output, the market dominance. He walks to a newly erected sign bearing the sleek logo of the Golden Thread Textiles, his name subtly intertwined with the design. He grins, imagining the headlines, the accolades. He is so focused on his own grand narrative that he fails to see the deeper, more profound intentions behind the shadow investor's specific, ethically driven requests. This room is a stark contrast to the rest of Kwesi's apartment. It's Adana's sanctuary, adorned with traditional African art, ancient scrolls, and meticulously organized ledgers. The air is calm, imbued with a quiet power. Adana sits at a large, intricately carved wooden desk, illuminated by the soft glow of a desk lamp. She is no longer in simple attire, but wears a richly embroidered tunic, her hair adorned with delicate silver ornaments. She types rapidly on a sleek, state-of-the-art laptop, lines of complex financial data scrolling across the screen.
Beside the laptop lies an old, beautifully aged document embossed with a seal featuring a golden thread, strikingly similar to Kwesi's company logo, yet far more ancient and intricate. Her expression is focused, unwavering, a stark contrast to the quiet observer she portrays in public. Adana reviews a report detailing golden thread textiles project milestones. She taps a few keys and a projection appears, showing the company's future growth, its market reach expanding exponentially. A small, knowing smile plays on her lips. Then she opens an encrypted communication channel, typing a message to a hidden recipient. Ensure the next tranche of funding is disbursed as per schedule. Emphasize ethical sourcing for the new looms. She pauses, considering, then adds, and send a reminder regarding the community outreach program for the local weavers. Kwesi tends to overlook these minor details. Her voice, when she speaks to herself, is clear and authoritative, completely different from the soft tone she uses with Kwesi. She is in full command, a master strategist moving pieces on a vast chessboard. Kwesi is in a triumphant mood. He strides into the apartment, a stack of newspapers under his arm, each featuring articles about golden thread textiles and his visionary leadership. He beams, showing Adana a headline. Kwesi's golden touch transforms textile industry. He practically preens, craving her acknowledgement. See, Adana, this is what true success looks like. This is what comes from ambition, from vision. Adana, seated by the window, calmly sewing an intricate pattern on a piece of fabric, looks up. It is indeed a remarkable achievement, Kwesi, she says, her tone even, though her eyes hold a deeper, unreadable understanding. Kwesi, however, misses the nuance, taking her words as unreserved praise. Of course it is, and you, Adana, are lucky to be a part of it, a simple girl like you, witness to such greatness. He tosses the newspapers on a coffee table, making a show of it. Perhaps now you will understand why I push you to shed your rustic ways. This world, he gestures around the apartment, then beyond, to the city, demands sophistication. It demands a certain pedigree, something your village background simply cannot provide. His words are casual, yet deeply cutting, a reminder of his constant disdain. Adana merely nods, a quiet strength emanating from her. The roots of a tree determine its ultimate strength, Kwesi, not merely the height of its branches. Kwesi laughs derisively. Poetry, Adana? This is business, and business is built on capital, on influence, on connections, not on rustic proverbs. He shakes his head, walking away, convinced he has made his irrefutable point. Adana, dressed in simple, elegant clothes, walks through a vibrant, bustling village market. She is greeted warmly by the vendors who offer her their finest wares. She exchanges pleasantries, her genuine warmth evident. She stops at a store selling hand-woven fabrics, admiring the intricate designs. The vendor, an older woman, smiles. These patterns, Adana, remind me of your grandmother's work. She had the Midas touch with a loom. Adana smiles, touching a particularly fine piece of cloth. Indeed, the legacy continues. She purchases several large bolts of fabric, insisting on fair prices, even paying a little extra, supporting the local economy with quiet generosity. Her actions here are entirely different from her reserved demeanor in the city, revealing a deep connection to her heritage and community. As Adana turns to leave, she spots Kwesi's sleek, expensive car pulling up to the edge of the market. Kwesi steps out, looking utterly out of place in his tailored suit, his face a mask of annoyance at the dusty, crowded environment. He sees Adana surrounded by villagers, laughing gently with them. His face hardens, a clear look of disapproval on his features. He strides towards her, his presence a stark contrast to the easy rhythm of the market. "Adana, what are you doing here?" he demands, his voice loud, cutting through the pleasant chatter. His tone makes it clear he views her presence here as an embarrassment. The villagers grew quiet, sensing the sudden shift in atmosphere, their smiles fading into guarded expressions. Adana's serene expression does not falter, but a subtle shift occurs in her posture, a tightening of her inner resolve. Kwesi grabs Adana's arm, his grip firm. "We have an important dinner tonight. What if someone saw you here cavorting with these people?" Do you know what that would do to my reputation, to our image? His voice is laced with public humiliation designed to belittle her in front of her community. Adana slowly extracts her arm from his grasp, her gaze steady and unwavering. These people, Kwesi, are my family, my community, she replies, her voice calm but firm, holding his gaze. The villagers watch, their faces a mixture of sympathy for Adana and quiet disdain for Kwesi's arrogance. He scoffs dismissively, waving a hand at the market. Family? This is not your world anymore, Adana. My world is of sophistication and influence, not dusty stores and peasant crafts. The silence in the apartment is thick, heavy with unspoken words. Adana prepares dinner, her movements precise, methodical. Kwesi sits at the dining table, pretending to read a newspaper, but his eyes dart towards her, a simmering anger still evident. The incident at the market has clearly infuriated him, fueling his resentment. Finally, he slams the newspaper down. That was utterly humiliating, Adana. Humiliating. Do you deliberately try to undermine me? His voice is low, dangerous. I work tirelessly to build a name, to build an empire, and you drag me back to the mud. He stands, walking towards her, his presence looming.
My choices reflect my values, Kwesi, Adana states, her back to him, as she continues to plate the food. And my values are rooted in respect, in community, in honoring one's origins. Kwesi laughs, a bitter, sarcastic sound. Values? What value is there in poverty, in clinging to a past that offers nothing but shame? He grabs her arm, spinning her around to face him. His eyes flash with a furious intensity. You should be grateful, Adana, grateful that I took you out of that wretched village, that I gave you a name, a life of comfort. He tightens his grip, his words sharp. Adana's eyes, however, remain calm, a deep well of emotion hidden within their depths. A silent battle of wills plays out between them, her quiet strength against his volatile rage. Later that night, Adana sits alone in her study, the room a stark contrast to the earlier tension. She traces the ancient golden thread seal on the old document, a look of profound thought on her face. She opens a secure communication channel, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Prepare for the board meeting next month. Ensure all financial statements for Golden Thread Textiles are meticulously audited. We must ensure full transparency. She then reviews a separate document, an elaborate proposal for a community development initiative focusing on empowering rural women through textile cooperatives. Her quiet gaze reveals not just intelligence, but a deep strategic mind at work. This is the true Adana, the unseen architect, shaping futures with quiet precision. The air in the chamber is thick with history and ancient power. A round stone table sits at its center, surrounded by elders, their faces etched with wisdom and authority. They are the silent council, guardians of immense ancient wealth. Adana, dressed in regal traditional attire, stands before them, her posture radiating quiet confidence and immense power. Chief Adebola, a dignified elder, addresses her. The time is approaching, Adana. Kwesi's ignorance grows, and his arrogance is a threat to the Golden Thread's true purpose. Adana nods. His focus is entirely on personal gain and superficial prestige. He has forgotten the very spirit of the project, to uplift, to connect, to create a legacy for our people, not just for himself. Her voice, though respectful, carries the weight of a leader. The elders listen intently, their expressions grave. They know the weight of their family's centuries-old mission. Chief Adebola gestures to a large ancient map unfurled on the table, marking trade routes and traditional weaving villages. The golden thread was always meant to weave communities together, to empower our skilled artisans, to create a sustainable future, not to be a vehicle for one man's ego.
Another elder, a woman with piercing eyes, speaks. He flaunts the wealth, oblivious to its true source, and worse, he demeans the very people who contribute to it. Adanna's jaw tightens. He will learn soon. She looks at the assembled council, her eyes burning with a quiet fire. The unveiling must be carefully orchestrated. He must understand the depth of his misjudgment, not just through words, but through an undeniable truth. The council members nod in solemn agreement, understanding the gravity of the impending revelation. The stage is set for a profound shift. Kwesi is ecstatic. He waves a new contract in the air, his face flushed with triumph. Jide sits opposite him, a more cautious smile on his face. This is it, Jide, the final funding round from the shadow investor. They've green-lit the expansion. We're building not one, but 3 new factories. He practically dances around the office, overflowing with self-congratulation. Their terms are still incredibly specific about the sourcing and community engagement aspects, Jide notes, ever the careful one. It's almost as if they have a social agenda beyond pure profit. Kwesi dismisses this with a wave of his hand. Philanthropy, Jide, a token gesture. They're funding my vision. They know I'm the one who can deliver. His ego has never been grander, completely blinding him to the obvious signs. Kwesi leans back in his chair, a smug expression on his face. I've decided we'll hold a grand unveiling for the first factory, a massive media event. All the dignitaries, all the press, and I will finally acknowledge the shadow investor publicly. I will demand they reveal themselves and bask in the glory I have created for them. He grins, oblivious to the audacity of his declaration. Jide clears his throat, a worried frown on his face. Kwesi, remember their terms, strict anonymity. They've been very clear about that. Kwesi laughs. Anonymity works both ways, Jide. They wanted to stay hidden while I did all the heavy lifting. Now it's my time to shine, and they will follow my lead. After all, who controls the golden thread? He gestures around his office, a picture of absolute self-assurance. Adana reads an email from Jide detailing Kwesi's plans for the grand unveiling and his intention to demand the shadow investor reveal themselves. Her lips curve into a knowing, almost mischievous smile. She types a swift-coded response to Jide. Prepare for the preparations as planned. Ensure the full extent of the investor's terms regarding community and ethical practices is publicly displayed at the event. Let nothing be hidden. She then closes the laptop, leaning back in her chair. Her gaze falls on a framed photograph on her desk. A younger Adana, beaming, standing beside an older, dignified man and woman, her parents, the original founders of the Golden Thread legacy, their faces radiating a quiet strength. The Golden Thread seal is visible on a banner behind them. The photo is a poignant reminder of her true heritage and the burden of responsibility she carries. The newly completed Golden Thread Textiles factory gleams under the midday sun. It's a magnificent structure, blending modern architecture with subtle traditional African motifs. A massive stage has been erected in front, draped with rich fabrics. A huge crowd has gathered, dignitaries, investors, media, and a significant number of local villagers subtly integrated into the general populace, their eyes wide with a mix of wonder and quiet anticipation. Kwesi is resplendent in a custom-tailored suit, stands on stage, radiating charisma. He is flanked by Jide and various smiling executives. Microphones are arrayed before him, cameras flash incessantly. He's in his element, the undisputed star of the show, about to give the speech of his life. Adana is seated in the front row, elegant and composed, almost blending into the background. Kwesi begins his speech, his voice booming with self-importance. He speaks of his vision, his relentless drive, his unwavering belief that brought the golden thread to life. He takes full credit for every aspect of the project, subtly downplaying the role of the shadow investor, framing their contribution as merely providing the capital for his genius. He basks in the applause, his ego swelling with every cheer. Then he pauses, a dramatic flourish. And now, he announces, his voice ringing out, the time has come to acknowledge the silent partner in this monumental achievement, the shadow investor who believed in my vision. I call upon them now to step forward and receive the public recognition they so richly deserve. He gestures dramatically towards a designated empty seat in the front row, expecting someone else to rise. A hushed silence falls over the crowd. Everyone turns, looking towards the empty seat, expecting a CEO, a foreign dignitary, or a mysterious benefactor to appear. But no one moves. Kwesi's triumphant smile falters, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. He waits, a little impatiently, then gestures again. Come, come, do not be shy. The world deserves to know who stands behind the golden thread. Still, no one rises. Kwesi's irritation begins to show. He glances at Jide, who looks distinctly uncomfortable. A murmur starts to ripple through the crowd. Kwesi, desperate to regain control, forces a smile. Perhaps they prefer to remain truly anonymous, even in this moment of triumph. He attempts to make light of it, but his voice carries a distinct edge of frustration and growing panic. Suddenly, Adana slowly rises from her seat. She walks with calm, deliberate steps, not towards the empty seat Kwesi indicated, but directly towards the stage. A collective gasp ripples through the crowd. Kwesi watches her approach, his brow furrowed with confusion, then growing disbelief. Adana, what are you doing? He hisses, stepping towards her, trying to usher her away. This is not the time. Adana ignores him. She reaches the stage, her composure unwavering. She turns to face the stunned crowd, her gaze sweeping across them. A regal presence emanates from her.
Undeniable and powerful. She is no longer the quiet, demure wife. She is a queen. Kwesi gapes at her, utterly bewildered, his carefully constructed world beginning to crack around him. Adana takes the microphone from Kwesi's bewildered hand, her touch firm. The subtle shift in her demeanor is palpable. Her voice when she speaks is clear, strong, and resonates with an authority that silences the entire assembly. My name is Adana, and I am the shadow investor. The words hang in the air, a thunderclap of revelation. The crowd erupts in murmurs and gasps, some recognizing the ancient family crest now subtly visible on her attire. Kwesi stares at her, his jaw slack, his face draining of all color. What are you saying? He stammers, utterly bewildered, unable to comprehend. Adana turns to him, her eyes holding a mixture of pain, disappointment, and unwavering strength. I am saying, Kwesi, that you have been enjoying the fruits of a legacy you never understood, a generosity you constantly demeaned. Adana gestures to the vast factory. The golden thread is more than just a textile company. It is a generations-old legacy of my family, dedicated to empowering our people, preserving our craft, and weaving a future of sustainable prosperity for all. She then points to large, strategically placed screens around the venue. Images flash across them. Ancient scrolls detailing the golden thread legacy, meticulous financial records proving Adana's continuous investment, and clips of Kwesi's private, demeaning remarks about Adana and her poor background, secretly recorded and presented with devastating clarity. The crowd gasps, horrified by Kwesi's hypocrisy. Kwesi's face twists in a mixture of shame, betrayal, and utter devastation. He tries to protest, to deny, but his voice is a choked whisper against the undeniable evidence. His carefully constructed facade shatters before the world. Jide looks on, his expression a mix of shock and a grim understanding. Adana turns back to the stunned audience, her voice unwavering. Every ethical sourcing clause, every community development initiative, every single aspect of this project designed to uplift and empower, these were not minor details to be dismissed, Kwesi. These were the very heart and soul of the golden thread. These were my directives.
She looks at the faces of the villagers in the crowd, a gentle, knowing smile gracing her lips. They nod, understanding, their quiet pride evident. You built a monument to your ambition, Kwesi, Adanna continued, her voice filled with a quiet authority. But I provided the very foundation. And now, the true foundation, the true purpose will stand revealed for all to see. Kwesi stumbles back, as if physically struck, his public image, his entire identity crumbling around him. The cameras flash, capturing his utter humiliation. Adana then gestures to the side of the stage. Mama Ngozi and Chief Edebola, along with the other members of the Silent Council, step forward, dressed in their traditional regalia, their presence exuding ancient authority. The crowd murmurs with even greater awe, recognizing these respected figures and understanding the profound lineage Adana represents. Adana introduces them not as her village friends, but as the revered custodians of her family's legacy. Then she makes a public declaration outlining the Golden Thread Foundation's commitment to sustainable development, fair trade, and empowering local communities, weaving the rich heritage of African craftsmanship into a global vision. Her words are not just powerful, but deeply inspiring, painting a picture of a future built on respect, tradition, and shared prosperity. Kwesi is utterly forgotten, relegated to the background, his public humiliation complete. The apartment is dark, silent. Kwesi sits alone in the lavish living room, staring blankly ahead. The newspapers he proudly displayed earlier are now scattered on the floor, some showing his triumphant face, now a bitter mockery of his current reality. The silence in the room is absolute, deafening in its intensity. His phone, which usually rings incessantly with calls from sycophants and eager investors, sits completely dead on the coffee table. He poured his entire identity into the illusion of being a self-made titan, only to discover that he was merely a loud instrument playing a symphony written by the very woman he mocked. He slowly stands and walks over to the framed blueprint of the factory on his wall. He traces the Golden Thread logo with a trembling finger. The apartment, with all its expensive but soulless furnishings, no longer feels like a palace of ambition. It feels like a hollow cage built by his own ignorance. He realizes with a crushing weight that in his desperate pursuit to look wealthy to the world, he threw away the profound, immeasurable wealth of the woman who actually loved him. The room that was once Adanna's hidden sanctuary has been transformed. The heavy curtains are drawn back, flooding the space with bright, natural sunlight. The adjoining doors have been opened, revealing a bustling, elegant outer office where a dedicated team is already implementing the community outreach programs she championed. Adanna sits at her large wooden desk, her aura relaxed yet undeniably commanding. Jide sits across her, a thick stack of transitional legal documents resting between them. The board has unanimously approved the restructuring, Adana, Jide said, his voice carrying a profound, newly forged respect. Kwesi has been offered a severance package that is far more generous than he deserves, but his executive powers are fully and permanently revoked. He is completely detached from the company. Adana signs the final document with a slow, steady hand, her expression calm. It was never my intention to destroy him, Jide, Adana said, but I had to protect my family's legacy from being consumed by his vanity. The thread must serve the people, not the ego of one man. Kwesi walks out of the lavish apartment building's glass double doors, carrying a single medium-sized cardboard box containing his personal effects. The charismatic swagger that once defined his every step is entirely gone. His shoulders are slumped, his gaze fixed firmly on the pavement. A few passers-by stop and whisper, pointing at him. He is instantly recognized from the viral footage of his public humiliation at the factory unveiling. He pauses by the sleek, expensive sports car parked at the curb, fishing the keys from his pocket. He stops, staring at the emblem on the hood, realizing that the lease, like everything else in his life, was quietly funded by Adanna's foundation. With a heavy sigh, he places the keys on the hood of the car and turns away, opting to walk. His reflection in the building's tinted glass shows a broken, solitary man who traded a partner of true substance for the cheap, fleeting thrill of his own pride. The golden hour bathes a sprawling, vibrant compound in the heart of the village. The air is alive with rhythmic clacking of dozens of large wooden looms and the beautiful, harmonized singing of the women working them. This is the true heart of the golden thread. The fabric they are weaving is stunning, rich, vibrant, and intricately patterned, a physical manifestation of generations of skill and heritage. Children play safely in a courtyard nearby, and the atmosphere is thick with joy, dignity, and shared prosperity. Adana stands on a slight elevation overlooking the bustling cooperative, flanked by Mama Ngozi and Chief Edebola, along with the other members of the Silent Council. They wear their traditional regalia, their presence fabulous and attuned to African culture. Adana gazes at the faces of the women weaving, a wholesome smile gracing her lips, a look of profound peace and absolute fulfillment. The camera slowly pulls back and pans upward from her serene expression, following a long, continuous banner of golden fabric as it dances in the warm evening breeze, weaving a brilliant, hopeful path into a boundless, hopeful sky.